G'day guys and welcome to Aussie English. My objective here is to teach you guys the English spoken down under. So whether you want to speak like a fair dinkum Aussie or you just want to understand what the flippin' hell we're on about when we're having a yarn, you've come to the right place. So sit back, grab a cuppa and enjoy Aussie English. G'day guys, welcome to this episode of Aussie English. Today I have something a little special for you guys. Not only is it an interview episode, but it's an interview episode where for the first time, I'm the one being interviewed as opposed to the one doing the interviewing. So today I get interviewed by the lovely Laura from Multilinguals of Melbourne, and she loves going around and talking to anyone and everyone who loves learning languages and lives in Melbourne, whether they're Australian or from overseas. She has an amazing blog where she pretty much just talks all about language learning and interviews heaps and heaps and heaps of people learning languages. Anyway, we recently met at a Mundolingo language meetup in the city where you can go and practice your foreign languages. So I went there to practice Portuguese and French and just happened to meet Laura. We had a chat and she asked to interview me. So I thought that would be the perfect excuse to sit down and also record it as an interview episode for the podcast. She's Australian. I'm Australian. We talk about languages, language learning, as well as how Aussie English started. I think you're going to love it. Let's go.
So yeah, I know we've already talked about all this stuff, but just how did you start the Aussie English podcast?
So I started because I was learning French, and I just fell in love with doing that. And there was a podcast called Français Authentique by Johan, who is obviously a French guy, and he had this just amazing podcast that I started listening to addictively. And
to help your French?
Yeah, exactly. So he explains expressions and then breaks them down word by word, talks about the expression and what it means aside from just the words in it and their literal meanings, and then would give these hypothetical situations where you could use that expression. And I really loved that methodology because you walked away not only understanding what the expression meant, how to use it, but you'd been given these contextual situations where you got to learn all the vocab around whatever the things were, and then also the individual words in the expression. And he would explain even though it's an expression with the word mouth in it, it doesn't literally have anything to do with mouths, but the idea is this. And so I don't know, it was just always really interesting to listen to. And so after I started learning French and sort of got to basic fluency within 6 to 8 months of working really hard on it, some of the French people that I had met and was practicing with were like, do you know of any resources like Français Authentique in English that you could recommend for us to improve our English, and specifically with regards to Australia? And I was like, I had a look because I didn't think about making a podcast. I was just like, I'll see if I can find something
for them to use.
Yeah, and there was just nothing out there. Like, there were podcasts for English, but a lot of it was, say, IELTS based or
really formal.
Yeah, you would have a formal conversation, or the setup would be very, very bland, a bit boring, at least from my point of view as a native speaker. I'm sure a lot of them use them and love them, but there was just nothing that I found as compelling as Français Authentique in the way that it was set up and specifically
I love this so much.
Focused on Australian English. And so that was why when I was like, well, far out, I can work out how to do a podcast, just have to record myself talking. I can talk
do
shit.
That every day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. And then I just I can't even remember. I think the first few episodes were me just talking about Australian slang and people like Paul Hogan, Crocodile Dundee, and
because everyone identifies Paul.
Exactly.
What's his
Paul Hogan?
Create the Crocodile Dundee.
The
movie,
Crocodile
everyone
Dundee.
pull out word the shrimp on the Barbie and all those things from his film.
Exactly. And so the initial thing was funny because I was like, far out, how am I going to do a podcast all about just Australian slang terms? Because I looked up lists and there were only 50, 100 words that were Aussie slang terms, and I thought, wow, it's not going to be much, but I'll work with it. But then I realised pretty quickly that people just wanted to learn English in the context of Australia, not just slang terms,
Because
obviously.
people don't, like, they might use them, but not, like...
Well, my pronunciation, the expressions I use, do I use the same expressions or words that Americans and English people use? And so it's just endless with, you just, get on there, create content that's just talking about anything and everything, but using Australian English and doing interviews with other Australians.
Yeah. And why'd you want to learn French? Like, back to that, like, how did that trigger? Because did you grow up speaking other languages?
No, not at all. I went through, I think, primary school. I started with Japanese and didn't really think much of it.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't hate it, didn't like it. It was just what we did in primary school, yeah.
A lot of people have that experience with languages. In an Australian context, they're exposed to languages, in primary school and high school, but it's not really a...
Well, I wasn't connected with anything culturally, or
You can't.
I didn't know any Japanese people. And Japan is somewhat of a neighbour, I guess, loosely to Australia, because it's in Southeast Asia, but
You
not
can't
really.
see, like, the relevance. I had the same experience in Indonesia. I was Indonesian. I was like, why am I, like... Yes, this is kind of cool, but what is the purpose of it, kind of thing?
And I had that in later, when I'd moved primary school, I started Indonesian, and again, it was one of those things where it was sort of fun, but it didn't really have a purpose. I didn't know any Indonesians. I'd never been to Indonesia. I didn't really have it's a neighbour again, but it's not really like, we don't share a border with anything.
Yeah.
Like say in Europe, where Germany is right next to France, and you guys have cultural similarities, and you're going to meet a lot of other people that are crossing the border and working. But again, with that. But anyway, I started high school, and French was an option, and I started that, and just for some reason fell in love with it because of the sound. I really, really liked the way that it sounded, and I think probably compared to Indonesian and Japanese, it was a lot closer to English, so it seemed easier to learn. And then after just sort of doing that for 6 years at high school, I didn't really get too good. I got to the point where I could, ask for directions and where's the toilet and can I get a cafe.
Converse those basic stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I also did Chinese at high school, and that was good but a nightmare. Very difficult.
Learning all the tones.
Yeah, I think mostly that,
characters.
but also the fact that everyone you had to sort of compete against in Year 12 were native speakers of Chinese. A lot of them picked that subject.
I've heard that
because
a
they
lot.
would kill it.
Is this in Victoria?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so even if you were the smartest kid in the class learning it as a second language, you would just get mauled by, all the native speakers who effectively speak it at home but wanted a class at high school that they could get a really high score in because they have that advantage. So I ditched that in Year 11 but kept going with French, and it was my best subject. So, but yeah, I tried to do it in first year uni and actually failed. Because I hated it, I hated the classes.
Do you think it's the way they structured it?
It was the content. It was all poetry and like 17th century literature and just dry, standard stuff you would expect. And I just didn't go to the exams. Yeah. I hated it that much that I just decided not. I passed one subject, I got a 50%, and the other one I got a 45, just because I missed the exam. And I was like, damn, like I should have just gone to that exam, put my name. I know. But I was too worried that I was going to fail chemistry and was, studying hard to try and pass in those subjects.
Yeah.
But I guess after failing it and ditching it, maybe 9 years later, in 2015, I just decided...
Oh, so you had the big gap. Big gap. And I'd always sort of maintained, I was still able to use a bit of French all the time, say the basics, and I'd keep meeting French people, and I was like, I just decided one day, screw this, it's time to be a different Australian, one of the few Australians that actually speaks another language, and French was obviously the easiest one for me to try and pick up again. You already have the basics.
Exactly, and it came flooding back. That was what really shocked me.
Yeah.
Was just how much it was just dormant, sitting there, waiting to sort of be reignited.
It's like this, like you have this other brain in your head, and you're like, it's just, waiting to be ignited. That's a good way to put it, actually.
It was pretty shocking. But, and just how much fun it was. I guess I'd done high school and I'd learnt because I wanted to do well and get a good score, but now I was finally the driver in the car, and I got to decide what I studied, when I studied, how much I studied. And so some days I would watch like 8 hours of Game of Thrones in French with subs and dubs.
Really?
And it wouldn't seem like work, because you were like, it's so much fun. And then reading Harry Potter, I would read 3 chapters in a night, which was a big deal for me. But that became so much fun.
In French?
Yeah. Well, like, you would just get to that point where you would get so enthralled in it. Like, I remember some days I was doing like 8 hours of just studying French
and switching from one thing to the next. You'd read a bit of the book, watch a TV show, do some Anki, and it was just so much fun. And it was interesting because, it was so self-directed and controlled that...
I heard that, I was thinking of Serene the other day, she was talking about, like, with languages, like, a lot of people always say to her, like, can you teach me another language? But it's all to do with, like, internally, like, you have to be... I guess you have to want to learn it. Like, it's not just something that can come to you. Like, the more effort you put into it.
Yeah.
I mean, some people say they don't have an ear for languages, but I think maybe
That's
they do.
garbage.
But
everyone does. Everyone who speaks a language does.
Yeah. It's like,
But you have to want it. You got to be like, I would love to be an Olympic gold medalist swimmer.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that I can't be stuffed. And that I'd suck at swimming, and it would be, I want a lot of things. But there are very few things. The
difference between I'm going to do it and it's like a fantasy, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas, and that was the funny thing. Once I'd sort of gotten over the getting to the point where I was basic fluent, reaching basic fluency in French was like, oh my God.
It's such a cool feeling.
Yeah, and you're like, this isn't that hard to do, and I could replicate this in other languages. And that process, that initial 80% of getting to fluency is so much fun. That problem solving and constant exposure is so gratifying that it's kind of like, I think that's why so many polyglots, right? They get one language down and then all of a sudden like, I want to do another 5 or 6 or 10. Yeah,
I know.
Because it's the process they fall in love with, not the actual languages specifically.
But more like the systematic methodology behind it. Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying. I think I told you I'm trying to learn Portuguese, but it's just. My brain is like trying to switch between Spanish and it just...
That's why I'm staying away from Spanish.
That's why I can't, like... I want to. I know, I'm like, I'm being a hypocrite right now, but it's like, maybe I think I should do another, like something just completely different so I can, I don't know, apply my learnings, I guess.
Yeah. It's difficult. I think it's one of those things where I would stay away from anything similar to one that I'm learning or already speak until I'd gotten to the point of being, very proficient in it, just because I'd be terrified that I'd confuse the crap out of myself.
That's what, like, I have, like, some Brazilian friends and I'll just be like, if I don't know it in Portuguese, I'll just say it in.
Yeah.
And they're like, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm trying. Like, I'm just like, because it is similar, but there's some things that just do not... Like, are just completely different.
The false friends.
Yeah, the false friends. So, yeah. What? Back to the podcast. I just want to check the time.
Do it.
What's like your favourite thing about doing it?
Helping people, I think, first and foremost. Just being able to make a small difference to a lot of people is really gratifying. Like, the amount of emails and comments and messages that I get after publishing an episode where people would just be like, oh man, that was so fun, or that was so interesting, or that really helped and I used that expression today, or I heard that on TV and I finally knew what it was. Like, that is really, really gratifying.
Yeah,
and I think just being able to make it fun, that I think is really the best part, where people can... Because language learning so often is so dry and boring, and people have a lot of bad experiences with it at high school and primary school. I
feel like people are scarred from their experiences and they go, like, as an adult, like, then they go try to learn it and they just have that, I don't know, intrinsic feeling of like, oh, this is like, it's too hard. But especially in Australian context. And I don't want to, like, bash on the school systems, but it is like, it's just the way that they're taught, and as you said, like, it's so important to make it fun and engaging. And
the difficulty, I guess, with school system is that you have to try and measure everyone with the same stick, and not everyone wants to learn the same stuff, and that's where they need to somehow...
Not everyone learns the same as well. Like, some people might be, I don't know, book smart, or some people might be able to, like, just be able to speak. And
but that's the difficulty. If you're going to mark people and try and give them a score and compare them to one another, then you honestly are left with only using the same sort of set of criteria, whereas it should be a thing about you come into a class and say, okay, guys, today we're going to learn vocab for cars or something. Whether you want to use a book, YouTube, whatever you want to use, listen to music about cars, whatever, go and do it for half an hour. I think that'd be more successful because kids are going to be visual, audio, they're going to prefer listening, they're going to prefer reading.
I think I like Sebastian's view on it, like, as in, learn the words that you're actually going to use and retain what you're going to use, not just I don't know, they just sometimes they teach you things and you're like, when am I going to use this? And
I think it's good to expose yourself to everything, but that's one of the things that I almost always tell everyone that I am teaching English to, is always work out your most commonly used phrases. Don't try and commit crap that you're not going to use to memory.
That's a good idea. I've never thought of it like that, actually.
Yeah, because a lot of the time, you're only going to use a small fraction of the actual words you need to learn to be able to recognise, but actively using them, you really only need to probably know, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 words that you can recall on the spot.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, the thing is that they're patterns, so they're sets of words that you need to learn, the collocations or whatever they are. And so I think that's why I did so well in French so quickly, was because I wasn't focused on just going through, the 5,000 most commonly used words and remembering all of them. I would more sit down, and every time I wanted to say something in French but didn't know how to do it, and it was something that I would say in English, like maybe it was a phrase like, how do you know that? And I wouldn't know the exact way to say that in French. I would go and look it up and then write that down, and then every single time from then on be able to refer to that phrase, and it just becomes part of your repertoire, in your little, kit.
It's in your pocket, you can just pull it out.
Yeah, and so that was the funny thing. It's not filling in all the holes in the language, it's filling all the holes in the language that you're going to use. So it's like you're trying to create a spider web.
Yeah.
And then eventually join everything up. But you don't need to cover everything. You just need to cover the little area that you want to target. Yeah.
Have that basic structure. I think that's
I think you'll find it too. It becomes so much more gratifying because you keep coming up against the same problems. So like if I was learning, say Icelandic from scratch, I would have to learn about how to talk about languages, how to talk about podcasting, how to talk about doing science, and if I don't focus on those things, I'm going to keep coming up against those problems.
Yeah.
And
so you knuckle down like those, get them down pat.
And the spider web grows, I guess, eventually, right? Like you start filling in all those holes, and then you just keep going until you hit the next hole, and then you go, okay, I'm going to have to learn that, write that down, learn that, and then you just keep,
building on it.
That's it.
I had such a backwards learning. Have I told you about my language learning experience? It was so backwards. I don't know if you want to...
Do it.
I went to Spain on exchange, like accidentally kind of thing. I just wanted to go...
Accidentally? You just woke up there?
I'm in Spain. No. I wanted to go to the US because, I only spoke English. And then I was like, then I missed the cutoff date. So I was like, I'll go to Europe. And then I was like, I'll go to the UK. And I was like, I don't want to go to the UK. Like, I'm such a beach bum. Like, I love, the beach, like surfing and things like that. So I had a friend who went to Spain, and I knew that the courses were in English. So I was like, okay, I'll go. That'll be fun. So I went to Spain, but I got there and I was like, I could only say like hello. I literally knew nothing. And then my teacher, she only spoke Spanish, and I was in the beginners class. But the problem was, like, I didn't mind that, obviously, like, I should have learned a little bit of Spanish maybe before going there. You would have thought a normal person would. Not a bit crazy.
That's good though, jumping in the deep end.
I jumped off a cliff without a parachute.
Into a storm.
I was skydiving without a parachute. But I didn't understand how to learn a language.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't understand all these words, like an infinitive, and like, I don't know, because in high school, I mean, we don't really get taught that. And then I was like, what's the present, like, the difference between, like, I knew, like, obviously the present and the future and the past tense, but then, like, all the specific words, all of them, and it was just like, okay, and then after, like, and conjugating everything, so then, like, after 6 months being in Spain, I was like, I kind of have, like, an understanding, kind of not, and then when I came back to Australia, and in my Spanish class, my teacher was explaining it in English, like, the next level, but I didn't even understand the beginner's level, so I was, like, constantly going back and forward, and, like, I, like, similar to you at university, I struggled so hard to... keep up, but also just to get marked all the time. But I don't know, it's like it took me a while to learn things, so like I wasn't like keeping up with everyone in the class, but I'd get it like maybe a couple of weeks later. Yeah. And like I was borderline failing. Like I remember my teacher asked me what the present tense for like to do is. Yeah. I was like, what's the present tense? And he's just like, oh my God.
But that's the funny thing, right? When you're teaching, a lot of the time if you're not asking the question in a way that the student can understand, doesn't mean the student's stupid or that they don't get it or that they can't learn it. And that's when you have to sort of reassess what you're doing and how you're phrasing it and how you're asking it. And that happens to me a lot, and I love the podcast too because it's taught me so much about English and language as a whole and just things like connected speech and pronunciation. I had no idea about, how much Australian English differed from English or American English, and then just constantly listening to myself speak and then breaking down, okay, how am I actually mixing these words together? And, you know, one example that I absolutely love is like, what-ia. What-ia.
What-ia?
What-ia. What do you? What are you? What have you? What-ia. It's all, it means all of it. So like, you could say, what have you done? And in that case, what-ia is what have you. You can say, what are you doing? And that's what are you doing? And you could say, what do you do? And that's what do you do? And so it's been contracted in all those three cases, you know, and you don't even realize it, but you get so used to hearing it.
Yeah.
And teaching ESL students how to use those phrases and sound more like a native, and then hearing them use them, and actually, you know, you just notice a massive change in their ability to speak.
Yeah.
And that's really satisfying.
It's empowering.
And fun. Yeah. And that's what I always look for now in other languages. So, for instance, in French, you sound like a weirdo if you're constantly saying things like je ne sais pas, I don't know. Instead, they just say je sais pas, je sais pas.
What is that?
Je sais pas, but they've just put it all together to je sais pas. Like, you know, so they join things like that. And the same in Portuguese, you'll have você é, and then, you know, something, which means you are.
You are.
But they'll just contract it to sé, you know, where they literally, you know, get rid of você and a, and they contract it together to just você and then say. And so there's just cool things like that happen in language that kind of get replicated across all languages.
And it's good, I guess, when you're learning that language as well, because no one wants to stand out.
Exactly. Well, and that's it. And I feel like people learning English a lot of the time think, oh, I'll never be able to get rid of my accent. I'll never be able to sound like a native. And a lot of the time, the accent's not really the thing that matters. It's the sort of rhythm and the way they speak. And so when they learn things like the connected speech stuff and the pronunciation of, you know, like what-ia, even if you said that with an accent, you sound infinitely closer to a native than if you were to be someone with a perfect accent who said, what do you do? You know, like saying like that is just making you stick out so much more.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. That stuff gave me a massive kick.
What about, like, have you had, I mean, not any bad experiences, but, like, is there something that's really hard to, like, explain?
In the language?
Yeah, like, what's, like, just, like, one example that you can think of that's, like, been really tricky to...
Far out. I think there are so many in English. I think a lot of the time it's difficult because they'll ask me things and I just won't know the answer. And you just have to be honest about it and go find it. Well, that's it. And I guess that's what an honest teacher does. And so it's hard for me to come up with one because a lot of the time, any question they have, I don't have the exact answer as to why or how, and I'll just have to go and look it up and learn with them. But I think prepositions, a lot of those things like prepositions and things where there is no logical reason. And so, you know, where you have to use for instead of on or at instead of in and on, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I don't even know why, I just know that you can't or that it's incorrect.
It sounds odd.
That's it. And it's almost, I guess it's a good thing being a language learner myself because I can sort of share that frustration with them and be like, I understand, because in Portuguese and French it's exactly the same where you have to use different from Portuguese and French, even though they're close languages. They just use completely different things in different situations. But probably that, and auxiliary verbs.
Oh, yeah.
And just, it's funny too, the students a lot of the time know a lot more than me about the rules. I just know how to use them innately.
I find that so, like, because I've done a TEFL course or something like that, so, like, that was after, but I did my language learning, and it was like, like so many clicking moments. Like, that's why that's like that. Like, you know, this is what's going on now. And I feel like my English has gotten, you know, it's improved now that I can, like, proofread a lot more.
Yeah, you know, exactly.
I'm a lot more confident in how I can read things and go, oh, that doesn't sound right. And even watching the news and how people speak in real life, I'm always noticing, you know, a lot of people use is and are. Yeah,
incorrectly.
Yeah, a lot of the time people just use is. Or have and has.
And that's the funny thing. When I started the podcast, initially I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to make one grammatical error and people are going to tear me a new one. They're going to see it and be like, this dude's like, he just made this error. He used is instead of are. What an idiot.
Yeah.
Or he put in the apostrophe S, whereas there's no apostrophe is meant to be there or something. But I think half because I wanted to not put myself in a position to always be getting corrected, and half because it is just how real life English speakers speak. I just decided I'm just going to put it out there, errors and all, warts and all, and just always be like, this is how we speak, and so this is how I'm going to talk to you guys. I'm not going to read from a transcript where I've checked it and everything's grammatically correct, because even if it is grammatically correct, a lot of the time people don't speak like that. And so I wanted the podcast to always be a lot more conversational and have ums and ahs and you knows and errors in there. And, you know, my train of thought will go off in one direction and I'll be like, and then go in a different direction. And
we're human, you know. It's not like we're robots and we speak perfectly. So people get it. You know,
I think that's part of the appeal too. Is a lot of resources out there tend to focus too much.
That's the problem with, I think, universities. So, not the problem, but that's how it is there. So if you aren't that type of person, like, is always like, I don't know, maybe you're type A personality.
Well, you get taught, right, that you have to be correct.
Yeah.
And that's what people are marking you on or assessing you on or deciding whether or not you're clever, smart. Yeah. It's how many mistakes do you make or how many mistakes do you not make.
Yeah.
Whereas, for this, a lot of people were telling me all the time, they're like, you should go and do a course and learn how to be an English teacher. And initially I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. But now I'm almost like, that's almost like being Picasso, or, you know, I'm humbly saying, you know, that you're an artist and someone's saying you should go to art school so you learn how real artists do it. And for me, I feel like it would give me the same way of looking at the world that all the other teachers have, whereas at the moment I'm kind of...
So that's your point of differentiation, do you
think? I think so. I mean, and, you know, maybe it's half me being lazy.
But you're curious as well, so it's not like you're, like, just talking about things and not, like, following up on them. As you said, like, people ask you questions and you want to go and you investigate and, like, find out why it's like that.
Well, I would be terrified that I would come out of a course like that being given the same sort of goggles to see the world as all the other English teachers, and you sort of lose a bit of your artistic flair.
Yeah, like I don't know. Is anyone else doing, like, Australian podcasts at the moment?
I don't think so.
So
at least not in the same way, and it's the same for a lot of other languages. Like, I would love to have a podcast like this in Portuguese. I would kill for that. I would listen so much more than I currently am to Portuguese stuff, but there's just nothing out there.
Yeah, right.
And it's easy to do. Anyone can do it for any language. Especially the hard thing is, I guess, that it's difficult for minority languages or smaller languages where you would probably get a lot less attention, you know, for, say, Icelandic or Estonian. But the people actively learning those languages would probably flock to you so much more readily because you would be such a rarity in those instances. Like, if there was something for Icelandic, oh my God, I would be addicted to that stuff. Yeah, there's just no resources for it.
What about, like, what do you see the Aussie English podcast, like, what do you see it's, like, where's it going?
I don't know. Hopefully in the same direction. Obviously I need to keep wanting to help people, but I also want to obviously be able to make an income from it. So just to keep combining those two. And the most difficult thing is getting over that fear of asking for money. I guess at least that was what I had to overcome a few months ago when I first monetized, was realizing that it's okay to ask for money when you're providing a service. And a lot of the time, the people that are listening to you and who are your fans want to be able to pay you and give you money to help you, but need a reason to.
Yeah, like,
and so playing with that sort of stuff. But I think in the near future, I'm going to focus a lot more on doing the same as what I've been doing with the Aussie English Supporter Pack stuff, where I try and create lesson plans for one lesson a week.
Yeah.
Then also creating small courses where they're really targeted to a specific problem that people have in English. And I'll probably let the listeners decide. You know, I'll put up a poll and say, do you need a course on prepositions or phrasal verbs, and whichever one gets the most votes. But then focus in like a laser on solving that problem, and, you know, do that month after month and create courses and sell them online, and hopefully
SPI.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Oh, so good.
That's the idea, and then just keep traveling around and learn languages.
Oh my God, it's like the dream, right?
Yeah, that's it. I think just to be your own boss and control everything yourself.
I think I won't go into my details, but I think I really like that as well, like being your own boss and like having your own, like having freedom. I think it's like, and that's what, you know, the world is kind of going in that way, like to be entrepreneurially focused and driven, and No, that's it. I think my ultimate goal is just to be able to travel wherever I want, whenever I want, learn whatever language I want, whenever I want,
and be able to teach English via the internet. So, you know, you can pretty much do that anywhere there's an internet connection.
What about your thesis? Are you going to use that at all?
Oh, I'm going to hand it in. I'll probably publish the papers from it. I've got one at least that's currently being reviewed, and then the next two, they'll get done pretty quickly. But I don't think I will ever have a solid career in science where I have, you know, a 9-to-5 job 5 days a week with a boss. I think if I do any science, it'll be on my own terms and volunteer, you know. But I would love to do something where I could potentially donate money from the Aussie English podcast to, say, research on endangered Australian animals and set up a grant where people could apply for it, and we could fund, you know, the listeners could effectively give money and we could fund a project and stuff.
Worlds colliding.
Exactly. Well, that's it. And that's my unfair advantage, I guess, is the fact that I'm a scientist and a language enthusiast. So that's what makes me unique. And I just have to find a way. Is that what you like to call yourself,
a language enthusiast?
Yeah, I don't like the word polyglot.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that's what other people can call you, but you shouldn't call yourself.
Yeah.
But I'm a bit humble and don't like to toot my own horn, so...
Yeah, polyglot's kind of, I don't really ever call people that, but I guess like people maybe like Sebastian who do speak.
Yeah. That's crazy. 12 languages, Jesus.
No. I don't know how my brain would function, to be honest. I would wake up one day and be like...
I think that's part of the fun too, right? Is when you realise you can switch in and out of languages. That, with Portuguese being the third one that I sort of started learning, once I got to the point where I was, you know, somewhat proficient in it, it was sort of interesting to be able to have, you know, Facebook open or Skype open or whatever, and be having these conversations in 3 different languages at the same time. And
yeah, like your brain, I love that. Like just like texting in Spanish, I'll be like, oh yeah, this is cool. And like, it's
impressive to know what your brain can do.
It's really satisfying. Okay. Well, can I ask another question? This may be the last one, just because I might have to go and take photos.
Do it.
Is there anything that you would like to see, like in an Australian context? Because, you know, generally, or I don't want to generalise, but a lot of people don't, you know, languages aren't as, what's the word, like, celebrated maybe? Or, you know, people just dismiss it like, oh, it's just... Is there anything you'd like to change? Or like, do you have an opinion on that? Or...
I don't know. I guess the difficult part is the fact that Australia is so isolated. It would be so much easier to justify and to probably rev people up and get them impassioned about it if we had a neighbouring country. If we had someone next door. Hold on a second. So, yeah, I think... the main problem is that we don't have a real reason to do it that's pressing. Whereas obviously if you live in France and you're surrounded by, you know, 3 or 4 other countries that speak other languages, you have a direct reason to. So I think it would have to be that you would just be... I would love to see Aboriginal languages embraced. That would be really cool. If we could find a way of combining local Aboriginal languages being taught at school in order sort of not just to preserve the Aboriginal languages themselves, but also spread, you know, cultural awareness, that would be cool, I reckon. Especially because you would be going to school on the land where, you know, these Aborigines once lived and thrived and had their own culture. That would be a lot easier to connect to than, say, learning Japanese from, you know, a high school classroom in Geelong. As opposed to if you knew, oh my God, like the name of the river outside our classroom is this in the local Indigenous... Yeah, exactly. And they're doing that in some schools in, say, the Kimberley. Yeah, are they? Yeah, so the Kimberley, I know there's one in the Kimberleys that they're teaching, I think they have classes in that language specifically, like just in that Aboriginal language, and they're slowly reviving it. But again, the difficult thing is that we have, I think, 260 Aboriginal countries in Australia.
Yeah. And
so you would have to revive that all over the place for so many different minority groups.
It's a challenge, but I feel like, I don't know, with technology and the way that the world is, I guess, going, it's easier in a sense. Not easier, but it's, you know, we have the resources and... We're
in a better position to do it than ever before.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I love that. I think that's really important.
I would love to learn an Aboriginal language.
Yeah, me too,
That
actually.
would be sweet.
I thought of that. I don't know how I'd go about it.
Well, and that's the difficulty, right? Again, even though we could do it, there's just nowhere that, you can't just go to somewhere like Germany where there's 40 million people who speak that language. It would be very, very, very localized, and there would be a small minority of people who potentially speak it as a second language, let alone a first language.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Just because
No, all good. Thank you for interviewing me.
No, thank you.
So thanks for listening to this interview episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to check out more about what Laura's doing, then head over to multilingualsofmelbourne.com. She also has a Facebook page. It's just facebook.com/multilinguals of Melbourne. I'll attach the links below. And yeah, it's an awesome blog where you get to read all about different people learning languages in Australia, in Melbourne. So go and check it out and say g'day from Pete. See you guys.